A very good evening, bringing you the news from here at home and across the world. This is Primetime News live on News First. I'm Mahina Bongzo. We start off with a look at your headlines for tonight.
Tested for the Wildlife Management Reserve arrives in Ambalantota. Will the investigation on the April 21st attacks be hampered due to the government's own doing? Minister Vimal Veerawansha and Field Marshal Sarath Fonseca questions.
මේ ආණ්ඩුව ඇතුළත ඉන්නවා ඉස්ලාම් අන්තවාදයත් එක්ක අනාගතයේ හරි දීඝ කන්න වෙයි කියලා හිතාගෙන වැඩ කරන උදවිය.
ඊළඟ ජනාධිපතිතුමා සුළු ජාතික ඡන්ද තියෙන මිනිහෙක් ගන්න ඕනේ කියනවලු සිංහල බෞද්ධයට කොකා පෙන්න.
Attorney General advises the IGP to launch an investigation into 5 people mentioned in the report of the Presidential Commission which was appointed to probe the April 21st attacks. JVP says 10 million rupees could have been given to every single Gram Seva division in the country with the money that was defrauded through the sugar scam.
Main sponsor.
LG OLED TV. Color that goes beyond clarity.
In your top story this evening, farmers of Valsapugala who have been staging a Satyagraha campaign for 53 days held a vehicle parade today.
Farmers of Valsapugala have been staging continuous protests demanding authorities to gazette a managed wild elephant reserve in Hambantota. Frustrated farmers who failed to win their demands over the past 53 days proceeded towards the Colombo-Katharagama main road in a vehicle parade today. The protesters then staged the demonstration at the Suryawava town. Stores in Suryawava remained closed as a gesture of support towards the protesters. The farmers then headed towards the Ambalantota town in another vehicle parade. Organizations including the Farmers Collective in the Hambantota district, environmental groups, the Buddhist clergy and several associations participated in the protest. Vehicular movement along the Colombo-Katharagama road had been obstructed for several hours as a result of the protest. Accordingly, the police took measures to divert traffic towards the southern expressway.
ජනතාව සහාය කාන්තාවන් කරමින් ගොවින් මේ වන විට විරෝධතාවය නියැලෙනවා.
අපේ මහින්ද සහෝදරයන්ටයි මොනවාරි යන්ත්‍රයක් වුණොත් බලා ගන්න එකට හම්බන්තොට හෙළලේ කියලා. මේ හම්බන්තොට බයියෝ නෑ ගොයියෝ ඉන්නේ.
The Hambantota district secretary contacted the protesters at the height of the demonstration. The police instructed the protesters to disperse, citing a court order against the demonstration. The protesters then travelled in a vehicle parade from the Ambalantota town to the Hambantota administrative complex. Representatives of certain farming groups were then allowed to meet the Hambantota district secretary to discuss their demands. A written pledge given by the Director General of Wildlife Conservation to the district secretary was handed over to the farmers. The letter noted that the gazette would be published in line with the Flora and Fauna Protection Ordinance. Accordingly, the president of a farming organisation, Mahinda Samaravikrama, and 2 women had called off their Fast Unto Death campaign following the undertaking. The Satyagraha campaign, however, is still underway.
Main sponsor.
LG OLED TV. Color that goes beyond clarity.
Coming up on the Epilogue.
ලෝකෙ කොහෙවත් නෑ මේ වගේ ගොන් මෝඩ තකතිරු ප්‍රතිපත්ති තියෙන රටක්.
Opposition parties and groups allied to the government have raised concerns over the investigations into the April 21st attacks due to the government's attempt to gain the votes of minority communities at the next election.
During recent meetings of the government parties, they have been discussing that the votes of the Sinhalese are insufficient. Therefore, listen to us. You are not aware of anything. Field a candidate who can garner the votes of minority communities at the upcoming election. The Sinhalese have been deceived. Their expectations have not been fulfilled. Although a person who received a slap with a slipper is screaming here, we know that your camp has given up on the Sinhalese.
තමුන්නාන්සලා සිංහල බෞද්ධයා ගැන දැන් අතහැරලා තියෙන්නේ. දැන් මේ කොමිෂන් සභා වාර්තාවේ අනුව ඒ විනිශ්චයකාරතුමන්ලා දීලා තියෙන
According to the Commission's report, Zaharan's uprising has been attributed to Galagoda Atte Gnanasara Thero. Was the ISIS group formed due to Gnanasara Thero? Details on the telephone conversations made by Rishad Baduddin's brother to Zaharan and the telephone conversations made by him to his brother have been showed to the Cardinal, not by us but by the police. While he was in remand custody, Baduddin's brother had said that he had only made a business call. When there is a need to publish those conversations, they claim that it was only a business conversation. Sometimes I wonder whether there was an individual like Zaharan in the Presidential Commission. A group within the government is acting under the assumption that they will have to join hands with the extremists in the future. Some people are ready for this as well. Those politicians who are acting in favor of Islamistic extremism to work with them in the future are not exposing this form of extremism and are concealing the true character of individuals such as Rishad Baduddin before the society.
නියම ස්වරූපයෙන් සමාජය හමුවේ නිරාවරණය කරන එක වළක්වලා තියෙනවා.
Parliamentarian Rishad Baduddin filed a complaint with the Criminal Investigation Department seeking an investigation into the remarks made by Vimal Weerawansa.
The remarks made by Minister Vimal Weerawansa yesterday is completely false. No one in Sri Lanka has 2 dates of birth. Only he has 2 national identity cards, 2 passports and 2 dates of birth. His standards have dropped as a result of the false remarks that he has made to gain political mileage. He made a blatant lie yesterday. I wish to challenge him on that. I filed a complaint with the CID to see if we can prove it. I expect the CID to launch an immediate investigation into these remarks and to take the relevant action. This request has been made to the DIG of the CID.
Certain members of the government are engaged in a struggle to chase away PB Jayasundara and Basil Rajapaksa. They would have supported the government if the economy was of a proper standard, but they are finding it difficult now. Gotabaya is saying that he has not failed. He is claiming that he has passed. A group including Vimal Weerawansa went to meet the president. What did they propose during the meeting? They wanted Mahinda Rajapaksa to lead the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna and Gotabaya Rajapaksa to lead the alliance of the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna. Will they resolve the crisis by making Mahinda the party leader and Gotabaya the leader of the alliance? Gotabaya has said that he does not know to engage in politics and has left it for the others to be done. He has also said that he would not contest the next presidential election. Then a parliamentarian had told him not to make such remarks as it would destroy their camp. They have been asked to identify candidates who can garner the votes of the Muslims and the Tamils at the upcoming election. I asked one of them whether they have been able to find candidates who can win the support of the Muslims and the Tamils. He then asked me whether the message has reached us. Gotabaya might have realized that although he managed to win using the Sinhalese votes, it is important to field candidates who can win the votes of Muslims and Tamils due to the current crisis. This plan involves Basil.
An adjournment debate was held in Parliament today where Minister Sarath Veerasekara apprised the House of the progress made with regard to the investigation on the April 21st attacks. Moreover, the report of the Presidential Commission, which probed the April 21st attacks, was also discussed during the debate.
17 women have taken an oath, also known as Bayat, to complete their training as suicide bombers. While 5 of them are no longer alive, 3 of them have been charged and are imprisoned. 7 more are under arrest and are being interrogated. The other 2 will be arrested in the near future. The Ibrahim brothers in Dematagoda named Inshaf and Ilham have funded Zaharan since 2018. They have invested more than 50 million rupees from their businesses for Zaharan's activities since 2018. Zaharan, who had subscribed with the leader of the IS, Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, on the concept of creating an Islamic state since 2015, had later turned into a fundamentalist and then a religious extremist. Zaharan has spiraled from religious extremism to violence in the early months of 2017. The person named Mohammed Ibrahim Mohammed Naufar was in the state of Qatar for many years, who is currently under arrest, has associated Zaharan closely since 2016. Thus, investigations have uncovered that Naufar was instrumental in linking Zaharan with the ideologies of Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi. Two Australian citizens of Sri Lankan descent named Lukman Talif and Lukman Talif Ahmed had linked 4 Maldivians who were also religious extremists with Zahran. Intelligence sources in Qatar have notified that the father, Lukman Talif, has been arrested by authorities. We reiterate, all children born in Sri Lanka must be educated according to the government's educational policy from the age of 5 to 16. Any school which fails to adhere to this policy will be banned. Steps will also be taken to regulate other madrasa schools in collaboration with the Ministry of Education. 11 extremist organizations which have already been identified will be proscribed in the near future. Swift steps will be taken to ban the donning of the burqa. Processes are in place to implement the recommendations put forth by the Presidential Commission. Further, legal action will be instituted against all persons and institutions who have been directly or indirectly connected to this attack that have not been public as of yet.
It is evident that Zahran was not the mastermind of the attack. During the war, prior to the 19th of May 2009, no service was acquired from Zahran to the army or army intelligence. Following the conclusion of the war, Zahran and another suicide bomber named Ami Mohideen had acquired T-56 weapons. That fact is clearly stated in the Commission report. DIG Nalaka Silva had sought permission from the Attorney General's Department in 2017 and 2018 to arrest Zahran. Since Nalaka Silva's arrest, the TID's operations carried out against Zahran and his group had been halted. Major General Lal Pereira, who served as the commanding officer to the East in 2014, revealed during the Parliamentary Select Committee sitting that he had brought Zahran to his office in 2014 and had advised him against promoting extremist acts. He added, although the former Defence Secretary, who is the current President, had been notified of Zahran on multiple occasions during security discussions in the East held every 2 months since the end of the war, no action had been taken. An attempt had not been made to report on Zahran's activities from 2010 to 2015. Those who received weapons training in Syria after travelling via Turkey between 2013 and 2014 have been arrested. They had received weapons training during your government. If so, their group had formed prior to 2015. It is obvious through the Commission report that lax regard paid prior to 2015 had also played a major part.
මම මේ කියන්නේ මේ ජෙනරල් සලේ ගැන. අපට වර්තමාන රජයෙන් අහන්න වෙනවා. ඒවකට බ්‍රිගේඩියර් සලේ 2013 ඉඳලා 2016 වෙනකම් ප්‍රබල බුද්ධි සංවිධානයක් වෙන යුද හමුදා බුද්ධි සංවිධානයේ බුද්ධි අධ්‍යක්ෂකලේ රාජකාරී කරා. රාජකාරී කරද්දී ඇයි සහරාන්ට විරුද්ධව පියරන ගත්තේ කියලා. එතකොට සලේ අවුරුදු 4ක් බුද්ධියස ප්‍රධානිය වෙලා ඉඳලා 2016 දක්වාම ඇයි සහරාන් විරුද්ධව කිසිම දෙයක් කතා කරලා නැත්තේ?
Why did he not act against Zahran? We have to question why he did not act and not speak up against Zahran for 4 years. The Commission has refused to reveal sensitive details. What is there to hide when an attack had already occurred? The so-called sensitive details are nothing but information revealed by Zahran's wife or even Sara Pulastini. You need to reveal those.
ඒවා තමයි මේ සංවේදී තොරතුරු කියන්නේ. ඒවා තමුන්නාන්සේලා එළියට දාන්න.
It says that the careless action taken by Ranil Wickremesinghe against Islamic extremism has led to the April 21st attacks. Even though former President Maithripala Sirisena's name was mentioned there, he was a weak president who was merely appointed for the name's sake. Who has supported this?
If Zahran had stolen 10 coconuts, this investigation process would have been faster. You would have carried out these investigations with much enthusiasm if Zahran had killed someone and had brought the dead body in a suitcase to fort. We have to find out whether Zahran had any ties with the intelligence units of this country. Is that why these investigations are not being carried out properly?
මේ රටේ බුද්ධ්‍යංශත් එක්ක මොනවද තිබුණු සම්බන්ධය කියලා අපි බලන්න ඕනේ. සුරේෂ් සලේ කියන මේ බුද්ධ්‍යංශ නිලධාරියා සහරාන් එක්ක සම්බන්ධ වුණාද කියලා ඔබතුමාලා පරීක්ෂණ කරලා බලන්න. ඒකයි අපි ඉල්ලන්නේ.
සුරේෂ් සලේ තමයි අද රාජ්‍ය බුද්ධ්‍යංශයේ ප්‍රධානයා හැටියට කටයුතු කරන්නේ. එතුමා තමයි මේ වර්තමාන රජයේ බලය.
He is the one who expedited the investigation process into the April 21st attacks once his government took over. He was the one who took leadership in finding out the local and international ties behind this attack.
මේ විමර්ශන කටයුතු සම්පූර්ණයෙන්ම කඩිනම් කරන්නට මූලික වෙලා ක්‍රියා කළේ.
දැන් මේ වාර්තාවේ පැහැදිලිවම සඳහන් වෙලා තියෙනවා.
The report clearly says that several MPs and ministers in the former government and several party leaders of the Samagijana Balawege are directly connected to this. You could have opposed this when they were given nominations. Why weren't you against it? You contested from that same party. When people who supported Zahran contest from your party, it is fine by you.
ගණදරු කරපු කට්ටිය ඡන්දය ඉල්ලනකොට පක්ෂෙන් තමුන්නාසෙට හොඳයි. එතකොට අම්මා මේකේ සුම්මා කට වහගෙන ගල්ලිබ්බු වගේ හිටියා. වචනයක් කතා කරේ නැහැ. මේක මේ හිතන් ඉන්නේ මේ ගෝඨාභය ජනහදුපති.
You did not utter a single word. Was it during Gotabaya Rajapaksa's tenure that Sri Lanka was bombed? These people think that the commission was also appointed by Gotabaya Rajapaksa. All Catholics were asked to come to church wearing black. But what did Harin do? He played cricket in Negombo. Harin had been batting and the one who stole vehicles in Negombo, Royce, had been bowling. Harin was batting and Royce was bowling. Honourable opposition leader, what is the meaning of this?
හරෙන් බැට් කරනවා බෝල් කරන්නේ කවුද? මීගමුවේ හිරේන්දියේ වාහන හොරකම් කරලා මිල් කවුද? රොයිස් බෝල් කරනවා හරෙන් ගහනවා. මොකද්ද විපක්ෂ නායකතුමා මේකේ වාසිය ගත්තේ අපිද? නෑ මේකේ.
Who took advantage of this? Was it us? It was the SLPP who took advantage of this. Please bring back Sara. Why are they hiding the testimony given by DIG Ravi Senviratna? There is a popular belief among the people that someone from India spearheaded this attack. The people believe that the group who benefited from this is now trying to cover this up. Please get down an independent investigative unit from overseas and carry out the investigation.
මණ්ඩලයක් ගෙනල්ලා මේක පරීක්ෂා කරන්න කටයුතු කරන්න කියලා අපි රජයෙන් ඉල්ලා සිටිනවා.
මේ සාරා කියන කාන්තාව ගැන අපි මේ මුල ඉඳලම දන්නවා.
We know that Sara was taken on a police officer's motorcycle from Mana. Nagur Thambi, who is a resident of Akrepattu, who operated as the traffic OIC of the Talawanchikudi police, was the one who took Sara on his motorcycle. He is now remanded and is under the surveillance of the Criminal Investigations Department. During the cabinet media briefing yesterday, cabinet spokesperson Udaya Gamanpilla said that they are not aware of Sara and that an investigation has to be carried out to find out who she is. While the person who transported Sara is in remand custody, this government says that they do not know who Sara is. They are trying to put Sara under the wraps. This is just one step to hide the mastermind of this whole operation. Did Zahran go to Malaysia before the April 21st attacks? Do they have the flight records? Was the current intelligence chief in India at that time? We wish to question these things. We ask the general public to use their brains and connect the dots.
කල්පනා කරලා බලන්න මෙතන සම්බන්ධතාවය ගොඩ නැගෙනවද නැද්ද කියන කාරණාව.
අවුරුදු දෙකකට කලින් දෙක තුනකට කලින් මොකද්ද?
A few years ago, Mahinda Rajapaksa admitted that a team of terrorists, including Zahran, had been on the payroll of intelligence units under his presidency. This was the same situation in terms of the Bodubala Sena and the Islamist extremist. Did the Presidential Commission that probed the bombings question Mahinda Rajapaksa on why the terrorist had been on a payroll at that time? These funds were not paid by Madhumulana. Was the then Defence Secretary Gotabaya Rajapaksa questioned why the terrorists were paid wages? The Presidential Commission that probed the April 21st attacks has said that this extremist group was involved in the bombings. Who groomed this extremist group? Who provided them with funds? Shouldn't they be held responsible for this? They must be held accountable. The root cause for this form of extremism and terrorism must be identified, but the Commission report has not covered that. They are unable to find the reason because the individual involved in this is the current president.
ඒ හේතුව හොයන කැලල කොමිසමේ නැහැ. හේතුව හොයන්න බෑයි. ඒක ඔබ දන්නවා. ඔබ දඩේම ගෙනිච්ච කෙනා තමයි අද රටේ ජනාධිපති.
Meanwhile, Attorney General Dapula de Oliveira today instructed the Inspector General of Police to investigate the 5 suspects named in the report of the Presidential Commission of Inquiry that probed the April 21st attacks. The suspects are Abu Hind, Lukman Tariq, Abu Abdullah, Rinzan and Sara Jasmine. The Attorney General today also instructed the IGP to seize the large number of swords, knives and similar weapons imported to the country before and after the April 21st attacks. The Attorney General has given these instructions in connection with a writ petition filed by His Eminence Malcolm Cardinal Ranjith with the Court of Appeal.
It has now been revealed that the country has lost over 15 billion rupees in revenue due to fraud with regard to a sugar transaction. Today, the ruling party said that a formal audit should be conducted regarding this transaction.
The government has taken a decision to conduct an audit and to take appropriate action. It cannot be said that this has been done with the intention of deliberately providing benefits to a certain party. A tax may be increased or reduced. However, it cannot be alleged that this was done to the detriment of some for the benefit of others. The government, in this instance, aimed to reduce the tax burden.
Did
the price of sugar go down in any private shop or in any government shop? The tax is reduced by 49 rupees with only Wilma allowed to buy sugar. Did the 16 billion rupees go to the company alone or to the government representatives or to the Minister of Trade? We demand that the government make a statement and inform the country about the manner in which this was done.
It is estimated that 12 billion rupees was lost due to the central bank fraud. However, our government loses 16 billion rupees in revenue from a single business transaction done during the last 3 months. This was done by Wilma Group affiliated with the Shangri-La Hotel. The 16 billion rupees that the government should have received, to whom did it go? Did they just hand it over to Wilma and wash their hands? Whose associates are Wilma? Who brought them here? Who is behind them? The leaders of this government and the high-level individuals. We demand that you take action against this.
Instead of catching the thieves, the government has destroyed the hopes of 6.9 million people in a very short period of time and started stealing. They have started treating their close friends. The loss alone is 16 billion rupees. In fact, 16 billion rupees is a sum that enables around 10 million to be given to each Grama Niladhari division in Sri Lanka out of the 14,022 Grama Niladhari divisions. They can give every school around 10 million. So what is the main reason behind why schools are not developing? Isn't it the lack of money? This is the dirty work of this government.
This is not something that has ended. It continues to take place today as well. The government is continuing to face losses. The president can instruct any of his advisors to read the report and to take the necessary steps to amend the tax. If the profits are earned by a certain group and not passed on to the people, those funds can be taken over by the government. While 15 billion rupees was lost due to a sugar transaction, a group of people suffering from the lack of water were seen in Soranatota in Badulla, despite 70 million rupees being spent. The Egodavela water supply scheme in Soranatota, built at a cost of around 70 million rupees, is in a dilapidated state. Our correspondent reported that this situation has arisen due to the lack of water in the water source. 7,600 rupees each had been collected from 280 families that were slated to be benefited from this project funded by the World Bank.
The first thing they did here was place a tube. What we understood is that the tube was put in place to source water from an underwater catchment. They cut my crops, destroyed my property, and are now saying that the water has run out. But none of those who opened it are here. Those from the water board aren't here. The development officers aren't here. As a result, now it is those of us in the village that have to bear the brunt of this. This is a waste of money belonging to Sri Lanka. Every change has been neglected now and nobody is looking into any of these things.
Shouldn't attention be focused now on reviving this project, which was limited to just fixing the water meters in front of homes?
Dalasalha Peruma was sworn in as the new Minister of Power. A few days after the minister assumed office, on August 17, 2020, the entire country saw a power outage for the first time since 2016. For a number of days since August 18, 2020, power supply restrictions were observed. The report of the committee appointed to look into the power outage was handed over to the minister. The committee states that the reason was a mistake made by an employee at the Keravalapitia grid substation. Power outages in North and North Central provinces. The electricity board says that the reason behind this is a technical malfunction in the new grid substation in Anuradhapura. What is the reason behind these power outages. Why was there a sudden power outage in the north and north-central provinces? Was a credible investigation into the incident carried out? For your attention.
The suspect who allegedly stole a car belonging to the chief incumbent of the Vipassana Meditation Center in Colombo 7, Venerable Ududumbara Kashipathero, has been taken into police custody with the said vehicle.
The vehicle had been parked near the bank of Ceylon in Talawatugoda around 7:15 p.m. last evening, and the vehicle had been seized and the suspect was arrested less than half an hour after the theft. The car was found at Kalalgoda Gramodaya Mawata after tracking it using a GPS tracking device fitted to the vehicle. Police said the number plate had been removed when the vehicle was taken into police custody and added that other parts of the vehicle had been disassembled in order to remove the GPS system. Police said the value of the stolen car was around 7 million rupees. The suspect who stole the car was a 23-year-old resident of Kalalgoda Vidyalaya Junction. The arrested suspect is to be produced before the Kadwala Magistrates Court today.
The Sri Lanka police suspect that the heroin seized in the Denagama area in Deyandara Mathura belongs to Ruan Nadun Chintaka alias Harak Kata, who is said to be a drug trafficker who has fled overseas. According to information received, 2 suspects were arrested with a stock of 10 kilograms of heroin during a search of a car parked in the Denagama area in Deyandara this morning. Among them were a 29-year-old man and a 38-year-old woman. A search of the area later turned up another haul of heroin. Police said that a stock of 74.975 kilograms of narcotics were found. The police stated that the street value of this stock of narcotics is around 750 million rupees. Now, the Colombo Stock Exchange today recorded its lowest daily turnover since August last year.
The all-share price index, the benchmark that represents the overall gain of all shares, declined 1.15%, 84 basis points lower than yesterday. The more liquid S&P SL20 benchmark also closed 1.45% lower than yesterday, with a decline of 42.16 basis points. The all-share price index has dropped by 18% since the 27th of January this year, when it reached its highest peak of 8,812 basis points.
State Minister Ajit Nivad Cabral has said that China has approved a $1.54 billion currency swap with Sri Lanka. Cabral had told a local newspaper that the deal will allow the island to weather quote-unquote present difficulties in the economic front. Concerns were raised over the human rights situation in Iran at the 46th United Nations Human Rights Council sessions in Geneva yesterday.
I remain highly concerned that arbitrarily detained individuals, including human rights defenders, lawyers, and labor rights activists, remain incarcerated, notwithstanding serious risks of contracting the virus. They should be released immediately. The continued arbitrary detention of dual and foreign nationals is also deeply concerning. I close by expressing my alarm at the continued harassment, arrest, and imprisonment of Iranian women's rights advocates.
Sri Lanka expressed its stance in favor of Iran during the interactive dialogue with the Special Rapporteur.
Sri Lanka reiterates its principled position that the principles of sovereign equality, respect for territorial integrity, and non-interference should guide the work of the Council, and that human rights issues must be addressed through a genuine dialogue. We urge the Council to engage in a genuine and constructive dialogue with the Islamic Republic of Iran.
Meanwhile, an informal consultative discussion was held between member states of the UN core group on Sri Lanka today. The discussion was based on the proposed resolution that is to be tabled against Sri Lanka at the ongoing Human Rights Council session. So far, Sri Lanka has spoken in favor of Nicaragua, Belarus, Iran and China that are facing allegations of human rights violation before the United Nations. Today, an interactive dialogue on the human rights situation in Korea was held at the 46th Human Rights Council session today.
The time has come for the Security Council to decide on the referral of the situation of the DPR Korea to the International Criminal Court. Failing to take action may be legal, but it's not justifiable under the UN Charter. I believe that the Security Council bears responsibility for its inaction against the continuation of crimes against humanity in the Democratic People's Republic of Korea.
Sri Lanka expressed its stance in support of Korea during the session.
We reiterate that any action to improve the human rights situation in a country should be guided by the accepted principles of mutual respect and cooperation based on the consent of the country concerned. We therefore request all UN human rights mechanisms to engage in a genuine and constructive dialogue with the Democratic People's Republic of Korea based on mutual respect and cooperation.
An invitation sent by Sri Lanka to Myanmar to participate at the upcoming virtual BIMSTEC meeting on the 1st of April has stirred an uproar on social media. The invitation, signed by Foreign Minister Dinesh Gunawardena, had been sent on the 2nd of March to Wuna Maung Win, who was appointed as Myanmar's foreign ministry following the military coup. In his letter, Minister Gunawardena has said that he looks forward to engaging closely with Myanmar's foreign minister during the meeting. Meanwhile, a protest was held opposite Myanmar's embassy in Colombo, opposing violence against protesters during demonstrations against Myanmar's military coup. The protest was organized by the Asia-Pacific Solidarity Coalition this afternoon.
Well, that brings us to the end of tonight's edition of Primetime News. We end tonight's bulletin with remarks of Dr. A.T. Aryaratna, the founder of the Sarvodaya movement. I'm Mahina Bongso, joining you with our sign language interpreter for tonight, Brian De Cruz, via video conference technology. Thank you for joining us. Good night.
The Epilogue.
Every day, people come from abroad without a cent in hand. Now, my second son came here and he has no COVID. He's a director of a popular airline, and it has been 4 to 5 days since he arrived. He came to see us. They have to spend 200,000 rupees for a hotel and also for 2 tickets for a round trip. All of this cost around 700,000 rupees. Why stay for 2 weeks? Nowhere in the world is there a country with such an unintelligent policy. What is the reason for this? It is because we have become a country in which policies are worthless. That is why it is going downhill. I say this bluntly because I am 90 years old and I am in a position to be punished. The national economy is a polluted mound. Sri Lanka has a landmass of 65,610 square kilometers, about 500,000 kilometers of the sea. These plans to sell or leave Hambantota or Colombo do not even get involved in these. Do not get involved in building an economy in which they resort to selling the country. Similar to how some people remain in power by instilling fear in the public, some in the world can use big money to make us look poor. It is a farce.
The Epilogue.